It's time now for the global business update, and let us start with oil. Now, oil is entering its fourth day of gains, boosted by geopolitical tensions between Israel and Iran following Iran's missile attack. There is some worry, though, that Israel's threat of a response could target Iranian oil refineries, which would impact global supply. Now, OPEC Plus has spare capacity to cover a potential loss of Iranian output, but much of that capacity is in the Gulf region, which is also vulnerable to an attack by Israel. Now, the budget benchmark price for Nigeria of $77.96 is just another reminder that oil needs to be higher for many OPEC members like Nigeria to fund their budgets. Let's take a look now at Asian stocks. And mainland China stock markets are closed for the week-long Golden Week holiday until next Tuesday, which would be October 8th. In the meantime, those South Korean markets are closed also Thursday for its National Foundation Day. However, Japan led Asia markets following comments from Japan's new Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, which we'll get into in a moment, has this update. And then also, if we look at Hong Kong's Hang Seng, that has been on a 6-day rally boosted by the stimulus announcement in China, but then it did fall quite heavily by more than 3%. So there's definitely a mixed performance of Asia markets today. And looking to Australia, their markets are actually up. Now, I did mention Japan just a moment ago, and its new Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, says that he doesn't believe Japan's current environment supports another rate hike. This was after his meeting with the Bank of Japan governor. Now, it's an interesting comment considering the Bank of Japan is supposed to be independent. Now, this new Prime Minister in Japan, his comments sound like a flip-flop, since back in August he did suggest gradual rate hikes did make sense, but he's walked that back now. And politics likely sound to be the reason for this shift, since he may be concerned with raising borrowing costs further with a snap election coming on the 27th of this month, a snap election that he himself has called for. Now, Japanese markets interpreted his comments as dovish and climbed while the yen weakened. About Shigeru Ishiba's approval rating now, it's currently at 51%. Now, that's the lowest level for an incoming prime minister since 2002. Fumio Kishida had a 59% rating when he came into office, and the ruling Liberal Democratic Party has been hit by corruption scandals, which has dented confidence just a little bit. Let's move on to Europe. And LVMH has signed a sponsorship deal with Formula One as a signal the luxury group is venturing further into sports. The deal, worth just under 100 million euros a year, is supposed to begin in 2025 and will last a decade. Now, the president and chief executive of Formula One owner Liberty Media, Greg Maffei, says that the opportunity to scale our commercial arrangements is emblematic of the vision we have for Formula One, and the business continues to grow. We look forward to working with Bernard and Frédéric Arnault in the years to come. From Europe to the United States now, and President Biden says he will not force striking workers at the ILA union back to work at East and Gulf East ports, which brings us to US jobs data. Now, the markets are still waiting for September jobs report, which is supposed to be released on Friday, but the estimate for September is 140,000 jobs created. Now, that is lower than the 142,000 jobs created in August, but higher than the 89,000 jobs created in July. Now, unemployment rate in September is expected to remain at 4.2%, and the Federal Reserve will be watching this number closely, as well as the October number ahead of its next meeting in November. Let us move on to Nigerian news now. And the Jigawa state government has brought Khadija University, a private university, for the sum of 11 billion naira for the state. Now, the university is located in Maja town in the Taura local government area of the state, and they will be paying 40% upfront, while the remaining 60% will be paid over 2 years. Finally, the federal government has unveiled new incentives to boost Nigeria's oil and gas sector. That's actually reflected on the top of this day, this morning. Goodness gracious, I don't know how Rotus does it. That was a whole mouthful.
I mean, that's a whole mouthful. There's a story I want to point out.
Go ahead.
I talked about it before, and it's a story that shows the decadence in the healthcare sector. Right. It's called the Health Preparedness Index. It was released by SBM Morgan. Health Preparedness Index. The grade, these are the grades as follows, just hear it. So A, 100 to 81, B2, 79 to 70, B3, 69 to 65, 64, 64 to 65, 65, 59 to 56, 66, 50 to 50, D7, 45 to 49, E8, 39 and below is fail. Do you know that most every state in Nigeria failed a health preparedness index? Even Lagos is scored 25.09%. Ogun, 23.23%. What it means is that the health preparedness infrastructure amongst most of the states in Nigeria is a total failure. And what are the health preparedness infrastructure index? Take, for instance, questions like, and it ties into the economy, because if you don't have a healthy population, you can't have a healthy economy.
Absolutely.
If you have an emergency today, as you speak, do you have any ambulance emergency number you're going to call?
Well, heaven forbid, there are emergency numbers, right? But it's about whether or not there'll be someone on the other end of them. We do have them.
That's just it. What's the closest primary health care? Right. The mapping of the primary health care and the GP system. Those are things like, what's the level of health and sanitation?
There is a lot.
There's a lot to be done.
There is. We'll come back to you, Rufai, for some more comments. Ayo, what do you think?
All right, so I was just going to talk about another announcement yesterday made by the President of a new introduction of EV vehicles in the Northeast. Right. So the Northeast Development Commission met with the President yesterday, and they've he's now approved a framework for just deploying EV, that's electric vehicles in the Northeast. I find this interesting because yesterday we had Prince Mustafa Audu, and he was speaking about how he's always been a proponent of EVs. We've had the conversation around CNG buses versus EV buses, the direction of this administration, and now to see that the Northeast Development Commission have taken the bulls by the horn themselves and gone to say that, oh, they feel that it's more efficient, it would carry more passengers. They'll put things in orders, a solar power grid, charge it up, it can take more passengers. So the conversation is, where is the direction really? I'd said earlier that CNG buses are being phased out in some parts of the world. People are looking more to electric vehicles. The conversation in Nigeria was, do we have the infrastructure to support electric vehicles? It's clean energy as well. We see the price war across the world. We see how governments have supported manufacturers in the individual countries to boost BYD in China, Tesla in the United States of America, and what the hope for Nigeria. It seems like we're catching up. So maybe this is it's going to trigger other regions to now embrace that. Then I asked the question, what happens to the CNG initiative by the President and the amount of money that has been spent so far on that? Again, going back to planning and forward planning and no knee-jerk reaction in regards to direction of policy, because if it's very successful in the Northeast, best believe it's going to be a better option for other sides. Indeed. And then what happens to all these CNG conversion kits that have been ordered? What happens to all these centers? Or maybe they'll run side by side. I say that because Toyota has delayed sales in setting up their EV factory in the United Kingdom, citing poor sales, and the like. So just a lot of conversations around there that Nigeria shouldn't play catch up and begin to think globally as well.
Agreed.
Okay, on the stories from the international scene, well, Japan's new prime minister, what he was advising, in my view, is caution. Economic normalization that Japan is seeking. And he is saying that although Japan wants to exit deflation, that it is important to do so in a careful manner. You will recall that Japan increased rates in July. In September, it kept the rates steady. So now this new prime minister is now saying, well, maybe we have to be very careful about how we go about it. Across the world, anyway, most central banks have been cutting rates, with a significant exception of Nigeria. So that's the sense in which I see what Shigeru Ishiba was saying. The other story has to do with OpenAI, the ChatGPT body led by Sam Altman. Now, they were trying to raise funds, and they've been able to raise over $6 billion with investments, coming from Microsoft, coming from NVIDIA, and then reiterating again the importance of artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence has driven, the market this particular year, month after month. So now they have a total assets of what about market value of about 157 billion, raising just 6.6 billion in just one attempt to attract investors. Again, we're reminded of the value of artificial intelligence. Finally, I would like to talk about the U.S. Commerce Department, which has now placed 2 more entities from China on the entity list. You know, there is this law that is against forced labor in the Uyghur, area of China. Now they've placed 2 more entities on that, which means that products from that effort cannot be sold in the United States. And this is within the context of law. And they are responding, of course, to Beijing also taking a step banning some products, some entities from the United States. So you have this political economy. It's not just war we are dealing with.
No.
We're dealing with the war of commerce, of international trade. As for oil, it will keep going up and down.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Reuben. Thank you all for your comments. I appreciate your support while we're standing in for protest. Thank you so much.